The suppression of the use of marijuana and of the forces lurking behind it are the most important jobs this department is now engaged in. In 1930, the records on marijuana in the Washington office of the Narcotics Division scarcely filled a small folder like this. Today, they fill cabinets.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Coloradians and everyone that's smart enough to listen from the outside.
One of the most amazing plants we've ever discovered.
The pot party, the trippers, the grasshoppers, the hip ones, all gathered in secrecy and flying high as a kite.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the last episode of the week. It's our recap from Steamboat. Y'all heard us tease a little bit about Elkstone Farms, Chef Russell Goodman, and the kick-ass private dinner we went to last week. Well, now we're going to get the inside nitty-gritty information from Chef himself. We actually recorded this episode last week after I did a slumber party with Chef at their place in Steamboat, but because I was by myself and without Eve, I totally biffed it. I messed it up royally. So we're re-recording, which means I get to tell Chef Russell Goodman, the head chef at Elkstone Farm, the man that led the Billo Premium Cannabis supper last week, the one you saw on our social media this morning. We're re-recording this interview because y'all have got to know this guy. But before I introduce Chef, I want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at RIKI Seltzers. Y'all know them better than anybody. They are the brainchild between Tivoli and Breckenridge Distillery. That means they're made right here in the community. And they were our seltzer of the summer. And now we're calling them the seltzer of autumn because football season, nothing pairs better than a football game on the patio while you're grilling some meats than an ice cold beverage. And what better way to knock back a few suds than with 7% seltzers? That's right. That's 1.5 shots in every can. You can get RIKI Seltzers at all 3 Mr. B's locations. You can get them at Sobo Liquors. Shout out to our boy, Mark Rycroft, as well as a litany of other stores around the metro area, but we thoroughly recommend Mr. B's. So if you're looking for a nice, refreshing cocktail beverage in a can, check out RIKI Seltzers, the babies from Breckenridge Distillery. By God, they're delicious. Chris is out of commission still because we had so much fun Sunday. He also may be a little under the weather because he has a cold. But now it's with all the honor in the world, I get to introduce one of the warmest hosts I've ever had in my life, one of the kindest men I've ever been able to meet, and a fucking creative genius when it comes to a chef in the kitchen. Chef Russell Goodman, how are you today, brother?
I'm fantastic, Kip. Thanks so much for having me on here.
Dude, no, the honor is all ours. I feel like I really screwed this mightily because the authenticity of us hanging out on your couch after having a cup of coffee after you just knocked that party out of the park last week. I when I fucked up the audio and I heard it, and I was like, we've got to re-record this because you have a great journey, as well as you're doing some unbelievably gnarly, badass stuff up there in the Yampa Valley. But Chef, we like to start every episode the same way. And the question is, are you a transplant or a native to Colorado?
I am a transplant to Colorado as of about 8 or 9 years ago. No, 9 or 10 years. 10 plus years ago.
Look at you. I saw you doing math and having to look up. I know that. I'm a finger counter myself. Where'd you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe?
I was working at this amazing resort in Virginia in the Blue Ridge Mountains and in a really small town called Stewart, Virginia. And I loved this town. I loved the people. I loved the rural environment. We were so many miles from the nearest highway. We weren't on the way to anywhere. And we provided hospitality in this mountain setting. And I loved it. And it would sometimes snow and I would get very excited. And then by the morning, it would melt. And that made me think, I'm finally at a point in my career where I can kind of choose where I want to go. Where can I go that the snow sticks around a little longer? And I realized I could put a pin on the map anywhere I wanted. And I put that pin in Vail, Colorado, because that's where all my fondest childhood memories seem to come from. And I thought it must be this magical place. And I went there and I had a great time. I really enjoyed living in Vail. And what I did for the most part was work and ski. And so I worked very long days and spent the rest of my time skiing. And one of my friends pointed out that there's more to life than that, and I should expand my horizons and maybe meet a partner. And so I started online dating and eventually, not even eventually, like very quickly met the woman who became my wife. And so
Hey, Miss
in
Katie?
yeah, exactly, Katie. Yeah.
Dude, okay, so for those that don't know, I obviously got to meet Chef's wife when I stayed at their house for the party. She is the warmest guest host I've ever had in my life. And she is a wizard when it comes to like we host cannabis dinners. And when I do front of house, like I have to leave it to Chris because I will mess it up in a heartbeat. Your wife has this dialed down. Y'all's 1-2 punch is exceptional. So I have to give a shout out to Katie, Irish Katie, if y'all don't know, on social media. She is so fucking awesome. I love your wife. She's a hoot and a holler and a hard worker. So well done.
Yeah, thank you. I totally agree. It's important to have support in your life when you do something like this, when you're in a career like this. And I get limitless support from Katie, and I definitely wouldn't be where I am without her contribution. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, for sure. And let's take it back a step. So, like, how did you fall in love with food? Where did your culinary, like, I guess, journey begin? Give us a little rundown as to before we dive straight into the Colorado vibe. But I do love it because we're going to circle back to Katie and Steamboat in a couple of seconds. But tell us your journey. So, where did you mentioned Virginia, and I remember Blacksburg, whether it's this conversation or one of the previous. But I mean, you're a Hokie at heart. But how did you find your way through the kitchen into Colorado?
Um, I grew up in sort of a culinary household. My mom was from scratch kind of cook. She made us all different things every night, and really, was an impeccable host when it came to dinner parties and celebrations. And from her, I learned this sort of art of hospitality, from the dishes you choose to put food on, to the food itself, to the environment, to the acoustics, the music, whatever it is. She sort of ignited the spirit of hospitality in me. But when I was young, I thought I was on this path to go get a Nobel Prize in medicine. So uh, most of my focus was on academics. And nevertheless, when I got to college, I started working in a French bakery in Atlanta that's still around. It's called Alon's. It was an amazing place to work. And I learned the fundamentals of baking and pastry um, from the staff there and from Alon himself, and really grew a lot. But I also was kind of spoiled and entitled. I thought of that work as my job and assumed that I would never again do that professionally. And my journey was a bumpy road. I went to Emory University. I went to the Medical University of South Carolina, and then ultimately had a knockdown, drag out fight with opiate addiction after a spine surgery. It's not something I really sought out, but it found me
Oh,
and knocked me down. And miraculously, I managed to get back up. And when it came time to go back to work, it wasn't like I could step back into my career as a scientist. I had to look at what was available to me and choose a path. And so I was in Blacksburg, Virginia, as you mentioned. A friend of mine had offered me a place to stay. I had previously been sort of lost and homeless and just tossed about by the world. And I finally started getting my wits about me and was walking through the town of Blacksburg and walked past a little bar that had a sign in the window that said "Line Cooks Wanted." And I thought to myself, I bet I could do that. And walked through that door and spoke to the kitchen manager. And somehow or another, he saw enough in me to offer me a job. And there I was in my early 30s, relearning a career from the start, despite having developed a whole entire previous career. And it was a struggle. I would struggle on the salad station. I would struggle on saute. I would struggle on the grill, and it was painful. Anybody out there who's a cook who's ever struggled or had a difficult night on a station, you know what it feels like. It's not a good feeling. And somehow I persevered. And I was, I had so little money that I took any shift that was available. And so I would work, prep shifts that rolled into dinner shifts that rolled into dishwashing shifts. And in this bar, interestingly enough, this is a little part of the story that we served wings, hot wings. And the wings, the way you make them, you fry the wings and you toss them in the sauce in these little buckets that are all labeled with the different sauce types on them. And a couple times a shift, those sauce buckets would go back to the dish pit, and there I'd be collecting these hot wing buckets, and you start spraying them out with the dish sprayer, and that basically aerosolizes the cayenne pepper.
I know exactly what you're talking.
You kind of mace yourself over and over again. And I'd be in the dish pit with tears running down my face and my eyes burning and thinking like, yes, this is my penance. This is a one-way journey. I'm not going to repeat this path, but this is the path that I'm on. And it's up to me not to double back, but to keep moving forward. And those were amazing experiences. The people I worked with were great and supportive. And even though in the beginning I really didn't know what I was doing, despite having watched every single episode of Julia Child, the actual act of being a cook in a restaurant is a little more complicated nuance than that. And so eventually I got my feet under me and, worked in a number of different places there in Southwest Virginia before, ultimately finding my way to Colorado.
And I'm glad you speak about it like it was a battle, like it found you. And I think it's a battle that we see a lot, not only in kitchens across America, kitchens across the world, but also like in every household. I feel like, addiction hit our home as well. And so being able to, like what you said, like, we're not going to double back, we're going to persevere, but a kitchen is a place that somebody can look to for, folks that'll lift you up. You work as a team. It's kind of like a locker room where folks come from different backgrounds on a regular basis. And, like everyone has different journeys. And so you kind of leave preconceived notions at the door. And it's like, we're all rowing in this together. Let's get through this fucking dinner shift. And so like the kitchen can definitely be a great place to kind of lean on, as well as very slippery slope, depending on where you are in your life, journey and things of that nature. But you did, you've had a tumultuous run, and then you came to Colorado. And I'll bring it back to like when we were speaking about when you met Katie through dating and living in the mountain towns, because I know that's a fickle bitch. Like it's got to be impossible, the dating scene up there. But how did you decide that Steamboat was the home? Was she already there, or did y'all meet through online and then do long distance? How did Colorado kind of change the way of life?
Well, living in Vail, for one thing, I didn't have a car, because you don't really need a
You're
car.
You're okay with that there.
If you live in Vail Village, you don't really need a car.
Exactly.
If all you do is work and ski. And so when the time came to, Katie and I, we met online, we spoke for quite a while before ever actually meeting. And then when the time came to meet, I decided I would rent a car and come up to Steamboat and visit her. And I went to the car rental agency. And when I got there, they said, well, we're actually out of that car, but we got this. And what they had was this gigantic diesel dually truck with like 13 miles on it. And they're like, you can drive this. And I said, great. So I climbed up in it and drove in a 2-inch-an-hour snowstorm up to Steamboat to meet Katie for the first time. So I don't know what she thought when I, rumbled up to the driveway in this monster. But that was our first meeting. We went on a date to a restaurant that I eventually became the executive chef of for a little while. I couldn't have known that at the time, but all the little pieces were falling into place for what would become my new life. And it was abundantly apparent after getting to know Katie for a little while that she was somebody I wanted to marry, and it was unquestionable that Steamboat felt like home. And those two things sort of came together with this remarkable synergy, and I couldn't have imagined making a better decision.
I couldn't agree more. I think you really have knocked it out of the park. And, you tell a story about, how you've persevered through so much. It feels like the Andy Dufresne, like where you've kind of found the outside of that tube. Like you had to dig through some shit, and now you're in what I consider probably the most choice area of this state. Like the Yampa Valley is gorgeous, but it's only as great as the people that are in that community and the businesses that, like obviously I love food and cannabis, and y'all have a litany of good food and great cannabis up there. And so So you have kind of an interesting dynamic. You teach and you chef, but where you chef may be the most I haven't done like Italian, like countryside or anything of that nature, but you have one of the most gorgeous sceneries and jobs I've ever witnessed in my life. You've like, it's awesome. This feels like the beaches of Mexico, sitting there shaving down a boat, because the golden hour from your kitchen is miraculous. How did you come about working with Elkstone Farms and becoming the, I guess, the head proprietary chef over there? And then we'll stew into that cannabis conversation next.
Sure. So the farm had a few previous chefs who specialized in different things. Some of them developed products that were sold in stores and markets. Some of them specialized in cooking classes and teaching. And the farm went through a period of time where they were having sort of a fallow year, where they were letting the land rest and weren't intentionally growing and didn't have any staff. And this coincided with the beginning of the pandemic. And at the beginning of the pandemic, I was working for the ski resort as a chef.
Oh,
And
over at Steamboat?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh.
And so, that was a fun experience. It's not the first time I've worked for a corporation. And when the pandemic hit, the mountain shut down. So I was getting paid by Uncle Sam to tend my garden, and things were going okay. And the owner of the farm reached out to me and said, "Hey, Russell, I knew them peripherally as a chef because I'd bought vegetables from them before." And so she knew who I was, a remarkable woman, the owner of the farm. She reached out to me and said, "We're having this fallow year, but despite not intentionally growing annual vegetables, all of these other things are still coming to fruition. We have rhubarb coming out of the ground, apples on apple trees, asparagus, cherries, pears, all these things were happening. The bees were making honey, and she needed a chef to help process some of this stuff." And so I said, "Why don't I come volunteer with you?" So I started volunteering there, and there's a strong volunteer vibe in the farms in the valley. And after a number of weeks of working 60 hours a week volunteering, they said, like, "This is silly. Why don't we make you our executive chef?" And I was like, "I think that's a fantastic idea." So
I mean, I never turned back. Like, if Steamboat called, be like, "I'm not taking those calls anymore. I'm sticking around the farm."
Yeah, I'm definitely not an available commodity anymore because I feel so blessed to be working where I work. And I recognize that, uh, there's a dynamic that involves like working versus not working. I would be a very good philanthropist. I'd be a great billionaire steward of the environment. Like, there's a lot of stuff I could do if I didn't have to work, but I have to work. And given that I have to work, I feel really blessed to do the work that I'm doing where I do it. Um,
Let's talk a little bit about where you do it, because I feel like that is a lot of people asked when we posted about it on social media last week, when we talked about it earlier this week in just a slight teaser. But now, everyone sees a little bit more of the detail from the farm. They see a little bit more about the party. Let's talk a little bit about Elkstone Farm. What is it like? Can the average purveyor just like come out there? Like, I know y'all do a farm stand in the summertime, but if there's Steamboat Food and Wine coming up, everyone loves Winter Wondergrass in late February, early March, and obviously ski season's right around the corner. Like, can people come party, or do we have to do private events? Tell us a little bit more about the farm.
so the farm itself is on a 700-acre property. We farm only a couple acres of it, and we pasture cows in the fields for part of it. Some of it is forest. There's water that runs through it. It's a gorgeous property. It's definitely a picture says 1,000 words kind of thing. And I know you'll have some media available that kind of like shows a little bit of the visual aspect of the environment. But first and foremost, we're an organic permaculture farm that practices regenerative agriculture. And so we grow fruits and vegetables, and we, in doing so, seek to return health to the land. We engage in a number of practices from biochar to composting that enable us to return nutrients to the soil. The farm is in an area of Steamboat known as Strawberry Park, and that is so named because a long time ago it used to be the nation's leading producer of strawberries. And through the monoculture practices of growing the same thing over and over again, eventually the strawberries stopped producing and that practice died. And so we're sort of rejuvenating the agricultural identity of this piece of property. And we grow strawberries, we grow a lot of other things too. And the land is just getting healthier and healthier from year to year because of the way that we farm. The cornerstone of the farm's economic model is what we call our CSA, which stands for Community Supported Agriculture. And it's kind of like a vegetable of the week club. You sign up and subscribe, and you get a box of vegetables every week. That's a fantastic way to interact with the farm and take advantage of the things that we offer. In addition to that, we host classes and workshops that take place during days or weekends. And then we make a series of products like cookies and crackers and jams and jellies and pickles that we sell it at our farm stand and at markets in town. All of that said, we also use a portion of our produce to support the kitchen. And that's where I come in. We provide lunches at a lot of the classes and workshops we do. Those are available online. And then we do dinners that are, as you experienced, kind of formal affairs. Like the environment is informal, but the practice of serving it involves, the essence of formal hospitality. We seek to dot
It's
every I and cross every
refined
T.
dining.
I
think
appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, like you can wear. I think I was wearing just some like Buster Ash t-shirt or some hoodie or something. And so like you're not out of place if you do one of these dinners, but the food itself is an elevated experience. I'll just go ahead and clip that in there because you're not going to brag about yourself. I'll happily brag for you because the food was fucking excellent.
I appreciate that. We in cooking these meals, which are usually, about 7 courses, we seek to express the culinary identity of the farm and the region, the valley, and we do so by showcasing the products that grow here. And the French speak of terroir, particularly in the context of wine, and what that refers to is the synergy that occurs between things that grow from the same soil. And I think undeniably that the Yampa Valley has a unique culinary identity with regard to the things that grow in its soil. And every course is in some way tied to the farm or the area and has sort of a point to it. I believe firmly that provenance matters. Where things come from matters. And how the humans are treated who are involved in the production of those things matters. And so it's an honor to work where I work, where the people who do the farming are so supported emotionally, physically, financially. It's not the most common model in modern agriculture, which itself was built on stolen land and forced labor. So we're sort of changing the equation of how we balance how these things are produced, where things come from, and the value of the end result in terms of the human commodity.
No, I think you'll have the ethos and I guess like of how to properly use the resource that are provided to you, as well as the other things in the community. It seems like obviously we have CSAs here in town, but how it's kind of community driven, everything from like jams being sold at market to being able to host events in things like a smaller community. Y'all have done very well in making sure that you reciprocate the love that you've been given, as well as using that to which you've been like what's been provided, like rather than going out of your way to grab, or try to be the A5 Wagyu. It's like, let's grow, our quality cattle here, be proud of how we raise these beef and, how we raise these cows and make our beef and things of that nature. And I kind of talked about that on the earlier podcast, which like y'all sourced this whole cannabis event outside of the weed and I think the trout came from y'all's farm. And so like, even when y'all are going above and beyond, and I want to talk about that because I feel like the cannabis game and the cannabis food scene is starting to change. And it seems that you're elevating that level and we kind of dig it. And so we wanted to kind of ask a little bit more about what goes in from, the farming and like using your own products to making it a cannabis paired dinner. Like, how does that marriage happen where was it strain related, or was it like, this is what we have available, what do y'all have available? Tell me a little bit about what goes into a farming dinner, especially one with cannabis.
Yeah, I mean, each time we write a menu, and we do different menus for every single dinner, we never repeat the same dishes. Um, we repeat some techniques because techniques are at the core of how we
Well,
cook.
yeah, I mean,
Um,
everybody, you
but
can't just
but
not sous vide things again if you do it for me.
right, or not make pasta. We do the things that we love to do, and we write the menus within a few days of each dinner. And to do that, I communicate with our head grower. We use spreadsheets to go back and forth, and she tells me what's available, and I order as if it was online ordering, except that I'm ordering from, a few hundred feet away. And then I think about those products, and I think about my audience, what they're looking for, what they're going to enjoy, and then we create a menu. So when it comes to the cannabis dinner, I think about what's gonna at the starting point, what's gonna pair well with cannabis. We don't, just to avoid any confusion, we don't infuse the food. We just serve the food, and people get to enjoy cannabis while consuming the food. And so each course was paired with a different, sort of like cannabis modality, a different, whether it was, everyone lit a joint, or there were edibles, or they had that crazy gravity bomb,
The
whatever it
Stunden
was.
glass, that thing was popular as can be.
That was pretty crazy. That was pretty crazy. It was fun to
Tableside
watch.
Stunden glass. Shout out to the folks over with the Billo flower. That shit pops. I tell you what, that Billo, and it was dialed in, and also our friends over at Green Dot were doing
Green Dot,
dabs,
yep.
and Keef Cola had mocktails. They had it, and this was all a private experience, as I remind y'all. So technically legal in every capacity. It's all left up to the consumers. So go fuck yourself if you're trying to get someone in trouble. It's all done proper. But oh my God, that thing was awesome.
I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun to put on an event like that. Um, we used to do stuff like that in college in a very like rustic and unrefined way. And there was still something special about it. And so to be able to cook, for guests who are adults, who know what they like, who are able to come and enjoy this kind of experience, I think it's a unique opportunity as a chef. I really feel a lot of positive energy around this kind of thing. And so, and again, working with the folks at Billo, they're professionals. There's no doubt about that. And collaborating with them to develop a menu and put on an event was seamless and a real pleasure.
Yeah, Charlie and Dave did a bang up job. They shout out to the guys over at Billo for organizing all of that, and the teams from all those brands we mentioned earlier. I thought it was a really great showing from everybody. I think, I mean, I want, my next question is, when can I do one? Like, that's the question, because it was so much fun. It's like, if you're a ski trip group, you can do it. It can be an intimate or a very public thing, or not public, but like a larger thing. Like, there was 20-ish guests at the one we did. Y'all did it exceptionally well. So I mean, we had to give our flowers, but at the same time, I mean, let's talk a little bit about the dishes itself, because as you can see online, it was a steak, it was a trout, a sarvis berry like sorbet was had. I mean, heavens, what were you thinking over there, dude?
Well, I get these ingredients to work with, and I consider them to be priceless because people uh, go out and pick these strawberry berries one at a time. They're on their hands and knees picking these strawberries, or up on a ladder on a tree picking these cherries. And at the end of the day, when you have human beings and not machines doing this work, I feel like the product of their work is priceless, and the ingredients come from just a few feet away, and I think it's unique in its character. We also are growing things at elevation with a very
Yes.
short growing season, where there are early and late frosts and middle of June snows and all sorts of crazy things that happen. And that results in products that are unique and different than ones you would get anywhere else. And so I feel like, I have to be the steward of these things. It's my responsibility to take care of them and express them, serve them in a way that highlights them. Fundamentally, in our kitchen, we like things to taste like what they are. So we don't seek to adorn or manipulate things in their flavors. A carrot, I didn't come up with this, but somebody once said a carrot will never be a better carrot than the moment it comes out of the ground. You can do stuff to it, but you're not going to make it a better carrot. All you can do is help express the identity of the carrot. And so that's kind of what we seek to do. I get everything in very limited quantities, and I don't really have a margin for error to mess things up. And so I treat them very, very carefully and seek to gently gild them and let them be what they are. Also, at the end of the day, when people come and dine with us, I'm feeding them 7 courses that they don't get to choose from a menu. They show up and they give me the responsibility and the respect to give them 7 courses of food that they'll enjoy. So it's my responsibility to make sure that the food that I cook is good and accessible, and that it makes sense, and that pretty much everybody wants to eat it. Because if 10 or 15% of the people aren't going to like it, then that model doesn't work. And so at the end of the day, I just seek to create deliciousness out of the things that come from the farm in a way that that allows people to enjoy it and still expresses the identity of the farm.
Yeah, y'all do an exceptional job at that. I mean, obviously, the sarvisberry, I don't think is the regular nomenclature for folks everywhere, but it's like a gooseberry. And so y'all have like a bunch of different things. And like you mentioned, you have an interesting harvest season. You have to play with what you're given, from start. And, if it's wet and snowy late into the spring, it kind of hinders y'all's progress through the early summer. But y'all have done very well. Y'all have this root room, which I think is the neatest thing ever. And I know that this thing is elementary and that it's been around for since 3000 BC. So for me to be flabbergasted or at least excited about it does at least probably baffle some people's minds. But y'all are doing a lot of things that I think reflect that your love for the exact culture and the community that y'all built. So that is worth applauding in its own right.
Yeah, and the owner is really committed to artisanal production of things.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. I know you're not going to
Yes.
say this person that owns the farm, but blink twice if they're a professional athlete.
Nope.
A tech guru that owns Twitter.
Definitely not.
Shit. Okay, a tech guru that doesn't own Twitter.
No, this person doesn't, or this couple doesn't come from tech. They're just
It's just so gorgeous, and they have such a cool ethos that they're like, let's make sure that we're giving back and doing something cool in the community, and that we hire like-minded individuals that want to kind of row, in unison for betterment of the world. And so you just have to wonder, who's nice enough to, or who has, it's like, oh, we don't have to turn this into cookie cutter fuck box condos. We can let this earth be earth. And I just find that very humbling and remarkably cool. And I just want to give a shout out to those people.
I concur.
Johnson, Justin Timberlake.
that would be cool, but I mean, equally is awesome. And these people, when they acquired these properties little by little and it aggregated this big property, they were thinking how do we be the best stewards of this land we can be? What do we do with this property? And they studied and learned about and visited other permaculture farms and decided a permaculture farm would be the best way to sort of create legacy and return health to the soil, and create a healthy environment for the people who work here. That's the motto of the farm: healthy land, healthy food, happy people. And
y'all had a
really,
whole
really
team of
works.
volunteers at this dinner. So for the record, they have a whole team that gets paid and whatnot. But these folks work on the farm and love this project so much for these cannabis events. They weren't like, hey, can you work tonight? They're like, hey, we will happily come in and help however we can. And these folks were the nicest ever. Your sous chef was a delight. Obviously Katie's team, Gio, I believe was his name, was just a hoot and a holler. I mean, y'all have a great kind of crew up there. Y'all are operating efficiently and smoothly as well.
Yeah, I think a healthy environment in the kitchen translates to the food. There's no doubt about it. And I'm not one of those chefs who has a super traumatic culinary learning curve. Like I was never, I had things thrown past me. I never had anything thrown at me directly. So I'd say I had a pretty peaceful experience of learning to become a chef. But that's not always the case. And so, I feel a very strong commitment to having a healthy environment in the kitchen. I believe strongly that that translates into the food that we serve and the harmony in the dining area. Um, but at the core of it, having the owners of the farm be who they are and the type of people they are and supporting us in the way that they do, makes it all possible. So I feel super grateful for that.
Is it Bill Gates?
Nope, nope, definitely not. Nope, nope.
Uh no, but y'all really do. And it shows not only, and I think that the term here would probably be passion. Y'all cook with passion. It shows through in the food. And you can see that in certain places you eat around, the city, the country, the world, wherever you may be listening to this, like passion comes through in the cooking. But at the same time, if it's like you're not having the passion when or driven to like kind of create, then it doesn't translate. And so it seems that, it's from the top down that y'all do have an operation. And obviously shout out to Chef Nicole as well. For those that are listening that may be chefs in the Colorado Springs area, she mentioned when her internship is up with Chef Russell Goodman, she'll be moving to Colorado Springs. So if y'all are looking for a rock star, reach out to Chef Russell. He'll be able to put you on it. Before I let you go, I'm sorry I kept you so long. I know that you're not just a farmer, chef, husband, father. You're also a professor / teacher. And I want to know a little bit more about how someone can sign up for your classes, because this sounds fun as fuck. And I just want to give you a shout out for molding young minds.
Yeah, I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably pretty cool. In that case, I would love to have you come see me as a professor, or have you come see me as a chef. I teach at Colorado Mountain College. I teach in their restaurant management program in the culinary and pastry and baking area. I teach credit classes that address various cooking topics, and then I also teach non-credit classes, the adult education evening classes they offer. We have one coming up that's focuses around dinner the night before the volcano erupts in Pompeii.
That sounds neat.
I think it'll be a lot of fun. A little bit of history, they all involve a little bit of history, a little bit of technique, and a little bit of fun.
Okay, so this, I'm not going to say come get into our arena, but realistically, Adam Rutschman, the guy that did Man vs. Food, has a podcast called History of Food. And you have a very vast knowledge of the culinary world, everything from your pickling game at home to like everything we're speaking about now. I'm just floating the idea. If you did a podcast of the history of food, I'd fucking tune in. I'm just saying.
Right on.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
so tell me more about this, the Pompeii class.
Pompeii's unique because it got covered in ash. Ash is alkaline. The ash covered environment preserved the remains underneath, and so throughout the process of excavation, we've learned a tremendous amount, because there's this like snapshot frozen in time of what was going on in this place. Much to my disappointment, they weren't eating pasta. I love to make pasta. I like to teach making pasta. I don't get to do that in this class. I thought I would when I first came up with it, but they didn't find any pasta in Pompeii. But we're gonna look at the things that they did cook with, like grains like farro and different types of meats and vegetables that they used. And so we'll create a meal that hopefully is historically accurate and resonates with the guests in the course of this class. The class is sold out, but there'll be more. Certainly, if you want to sign up for CMC, I'm a firm believer in the CMC model. I think they're a great institution. So we would love to have you in our culinary program. And if you want to join me on the farm, we do offer what we call private dining. And so throughout the winter, we do dinners that take place in the kitchen at an 8-person farm table, where you get to watch all the cooking and get served directly by the chefs. And
so that's for like couples and like bachelor parties. Like if y'all want to do chef's table, tell them about the big table. Tell them about what you do in the winter. Flex on them a little bit. I know you got a bigger setup in the winter. Tell them about it.
We offer a couple options. In the summer, we dine on our back porch, which is where the cannabis dinner took place. And that's a gorgeous setting with a little brook running water by. and aspen trees and red currant bushes. It's a really idyllic setting, and we serve up to about 16 people out on the back porch. Like I said, we serve like 6 to 8 people at the chef's table in the kitchen, and then we have a 4-season greenhouse where it's possible to dine even in the winter. It gets covered in feet of snow. You have to walk through a snow tunnel to get into it, and once you get in, there are lemon and lime trees and mandarin trees and all manner of things, a bird of paradise, all manner of things growing in this greenhouse, where it's possible to also dine as well. It's not the most optimal situation in the depths of winter because it's cold bringing food from the kitchen to the greenhouse, but we're working on the engineering of a solution to that problem, and so hopefully we'll be able to overcome that as well.
Dude,
But
y'all's greenhouse is so fucking sick. There's like y'all, for those that are listening and for those that saw it on Instagram, there's just figs the size of your fucking fist and lemons and limes. I mean, goodness gracious. They look like goiters on Frank Beamer's neck. Shout out to the Blacksburg people. That was a great fucking callback. But at the same time, no, y'all tailor the experiences based off of obviously the crowds and what's going on. But we would have been remiss if we didn't at least remind folks how they would reach out to you for this. And we're not done yet. I have some personal questions I'm going to ask you. But at the same time, what's the best way for someone to learn more, not only about your classes or your dinners, but to follow your journeys and to watch you pick the garden and cook food in a dank ass kitchen?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of information can be found on the farm's website, which is elkstonefarm.com, spelled like it sounds. And it's possible to sign up for our mailing list, where you'll get information about the classes we offer and the dinners we put on that are available to the public. And then if you want to do a private experience, you can reach out to me directly. My email is russell@elkstonefarm.com, and we can just take out the calendar, look at dates, and pick a time and a place. Our target zone in the winter are groups of about 6 to 8 people. If you're up here skiing with a few other folks and you want to have a dinner without dealing with the chaos and hassle of a restaurant or the unpredictability of other dining environments, and you want something that is going to be consistent and unique and showcases regional cuisine even throughout the winter, we offer a unique experience. And it's I say that not because I have like a financial interest in getting more customers. I say that because we love doing what we do, and every time we get to share it with someone, it enriches us. So I say that in the hope that you'll come dine with us so that we have the opportunity to meet you and share what we do with you.
I couldn't agree more. For those that obviously saw it on our stories, saw it on our Instagram, saw it on our TikTok, it's an experience that has got to be witnessed or at least experienced once in your life. It's awesome. And at the same time, y'all are doing some really cool shit up on the farm. But now that's enough farm talk. This isn't Pauly Shore's movie. I have a couple personal questions for you, Chef. They're called the Stoned Appetit questions of the week. Are you ready for them?
I believe so.
Okay. Well, obviously, yeah, you should be because we've done it once already. So this will be your second time. But the first question is, it's the late night snack question. If you had, let's say you work the kitchen late and you come home and you're trying to find that guilty pleasure late night snack, maybe get a little puff and then get into bed. What's that old reliable that's always in your pantry, refrigerator, or freezer that you can rely on?
If it's there, I got to say pizza. There's no question that that's my favorite go-to. If I have it, that's what's going to be eaten. And then if it's one of those situations where there's no pizza available, it's definitely going to be an ice cream sandwich.
Ooh, is this a homemade or do you just go for the box of Bluebells? Because we don't have any judgment here. We're a happy Bluebell household here. Chris is not with us today. He's probably dying somewhere of COVID or something. But if he was, he would say Bluebell is a good old fashioned ice cream sandwich. Are you a culinary guy that's like baking cookies and then making your own ice cream, or how do you go about it?
Definitely not. I like the manufactured products. Currently in the freezer, we got the Fat Boys.
Ooh, the double stuffs, or is the brand called Fat Boys?
The brand is called Fat Boy.
I was thinking you were calling us both fat for enjoying ice cream. So, okay, I got to look into these. I don't know if this is this a mountain related brand, or is this just like we're a Bluebell. We come from the South originally. And now if I go, I kind of probably look for either whatever's the cheapest variant of them all. I think we have a Van Leeuwen that was gifted to us in the freezer right now.
Good stuff. Yep, good stuff.
But I'll fuck with a fat boy. I mean, it just sounds like it's apropos.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what you want to go for. But yeah, I'm equal opportunity ice cream sandwich eater. Like pretty much I'll the ones with the M&Ms in them, chocolate chip ones, anything like that. I'm totally down.
They're like blowjobs. Even when they're bad, they're still pretty good.
Can't
Like you
lose.
can only exactly. All right, Chef. So I can't tell you enough. I really appreciate you joining us. Thanks for kind of taking us through your journey, talking a little bit more about the farm and the great shit y'all got going on in the Yampa Valley, as well as tip of the cap again to our friends over at Billo Premium Cannabis. They have great flower you can find across the state. And if you happen to be up in the Yampa Valley, go check them out. Obviously, shout out to our friends over at DialedIn, Green Dot, and Keef Cola. We're down to the home stretch, Chef. This is called The Last Supper, and it's the last question. The Last Supper means that you get to have 3 guests join you, dead or alive, but they can't be friends or family. The whole audience is going to judge you based off of your answer here. What 3 guests are you going to have join you, and what are we doing?
I gotta believe we're gonna go with Einstein, Euclid, who's one of the early fathers of mathematics, and Tony Fauci. And I think we're gonna
Okay.
all, yeah, I think we're all gonna sit around and enjoy some sort of communal North African meal like a tagine.
Okay, so I mentioned this last time. I didn't know the math guy. Shout out to you, but it seems to be a very inquisitive minds conversation. Is there something you're hoping to get out of them, like some, perennial knowledge before you set away? Because they are, like we oftentimes hear everything from rock stars to soccer players and everything in between. What brought about these IQs of 130 and above?
I think when you play the roles in society that these folks have played, there comes with it a sort of responsibility. And um, when the scientific information you put forth is either interpreted correctly or radically misinterpreted, you can direct things in one way or another. And that just seems like a great responsibility. And I would enjoy talking to them about how that weighed on them.
Dude, I love that. That's thinking from a different perspective. We may be sitting here talking 2D, but I like how you're looking down at the world in a 3D, 4D version. You're well ahead of the game. I approve that message. That's fair. That's a totally fair game. The Fauci one may ruffle some feathers with 48% of America, but at the same time, I also have some questions, and I'd be curious to learn a little bit more about a lot of things. So I think that's a solid answer. And then I think Einstein obviously is everyone has questions. And then after Oppenheimer, I bet you those questions have skyrocketed like 70-fold.
For sure. For sure.
Before we leave, give everyone a quick shout out again to your handles for social media and your emails so that if they maybe lost it in translation, they can catch it again. Shout out to all the 90s kids that were cold calling and trying to get phone numbers listed twice in a voicemail.
Yeah, I would be honored if you reached out to me. On Instagram, I'm chef_Russell_Goodman. And my email is russell@elkstonefarm.com. And our website is elkstonefarm.com.
Y'all, I can't tell y'all how fucking cool this experience was, how wonderful it was. Again, thank you, Chef Russell, for joining me a second time, but thank you and Katie. I don't feel like we gave her enough of her flowers because she knocked the bottom out of that doing a head of front of house for these dinners, as well as she was an unbelievable hostess, and I can't tell her how much I appreciate it. Shout out to Irish Katie on social media if y'all are looking for a fun follow. And at the same time, thank y'all again for letting me into your home. It was so much fun goofing off with y'all. I'm just eternally grateful. And we look forward to having y'all come down to Denver and then showcasing a little bit of that for our community that doesn't ski or doesn't travel as often. Y'all gonna have to
I would
come
love
do
to come
one.
to Denver. Yeah, I would love to come to Denver and cook.
Hey, we have a whole house. You can stay there. It smells like fried chicken for the most part, but at the same time, it's a great experience.
Right on.
Yes, sir. Well, Chef, thank you again. I hope you have a wonderful evening. And to our listeners, don't forget to stay high, stay happy. We'll see you next week. Cheers.